I used to believe betrayal was something loud, an explosion, a dramatic moment, a confrontation you'd never forget. But the day my life cracked open, it happened quietly, like a whisper slipping beneath a closed door. It began with my mother looking my boyfriend directly in the eyes and saying, "She's stronger and better for you." Not about me. About my older sister, Luna. That moment wasn't spoken to me. I only heard about it later. But the damage it caused, slow, precise, deliberate, became the thread that unraveled everything I thought I could depend on. Growing up, I lived in a house that looked perfect from the outside. White columns, a manicured lawn, windows glowing warm every evening. But inside, it felt like a museum where everyone had assigned roles. My mother curated every detail, every smile, every comment, every performance. Luna was always the centerpiece. Radiant. Effortless. Admired without trying. She didn't need to chase attention, it followed her on its own. My mother used to brush her hair and whisper, "She just shines, doesn't she?" Then she'd glance at me, quiet, practical, always holding a book, and add, "And Mira, well, she's smart." Smart. The word she used the way others use almost or fine. Their approval wasn't for me to earn. It was reserved. But programming, that made sense to me. Logic didn't play favorites. If I messed up, the code told me. If I fixed it, it worked. Simple, predictable, safe. A world where I didn't have to compete with a sister who seemingly breathed excellence. And then I met Adrian. He was gentle in ways I didn't know how to receive at first. He listened, really listened, and he noticed things my family never cared to. The way I organized my notes, how I focused, how I thought before I spoke. He made me feel seen. When I introduced him to my family, my father liked him instantly. Luna was polite. But my mother, she looked at him the way someone examines a puzzle piece they know exactly where to place. I didn't understand it then. But now I know that day was the beginning. Because slowly, almost imperceptibly, things started shifting. Adrian visiting my home without telling me. My mother asking him about his dreams and his future as if she were planning it. Luna looking different whenever he walked into the room. At first, I ignored it. Because for once in my life, I wanted something to be mine. But deep down, a small, cold truth whispered. Nothing in that house ever stayed mine for long. And the night I finally witnessed what my mother and sister had been building behind my back, that was the night my world broke cleanly in two. But what I discovered next, the conversation I overheard, the lies that had been crafted in my name, turned betrayal into something far darker than I ever imagined. Before we continue the story, please tell me in the comments what your name is and where you are listening from, and please like the video and subscribe to the channel for such amazing content. The shift didn't happen all at once. It crept into my life quietly, sliding beneath the moments I thought were safe. At first, it was little things. Adrian showing up late to our study sessions with vague, half-formed reasons. His phone buzzing more than usual. The way he'd tilt the screen away when I walked by, not enough to be suspicious at first, but just enough to unsettle something inside me. Then came the day he casually mentioned, "Your mom makes great herb-roasted chicken." My fork paused midair. "You saw my parents recently?" He blinked too slowly, like his mind was sifting through excuses. "Oh, yeah. She invited me over. Nothing big. Nothing big." My mother rarely asked me about my classes anymore, but she had time to invite my boyfriend over without telling me. That's when the first knot of dread formed deep in my stomach. It got worse. A week later, while riding in Adrian's car, I found a receipt tucked between the seat and the console. Gas purchased in my hometown. The same day he claimed he was in New York for a seminar. I held the slip of paper between my fingers, the sun warming the ink, and my instincts screamed. When I confronted him, he smiled tightly. "Your mom needed help with something. She said you were too busy." Busy. My mother's favorite excuse to dismiss me. But something else was shifting too, Luna. She began dressing up when Adrian visited. Subtle changes, soft curls in her hair, a sparkly gloss, dresses instead of sweats. She'd laugh at jokes that weren't funny, tilt her head in ways that were just a little too practiced. Normal people might call it coincidence. But in my family? Coincidence didn't exist. One weekend, something inside me snapped. I told Adrian I needed time alone for a project. But instead, I drove home unannounced. The lights were on. I heard voices, familiar, intimate, painfully comfortable. I froze in the hallway, listening. Luna's laugh. Adrian's voice. My mother's approval-filled hum. I stepped forward, heart pounding, and peeked around the corner. Luna sat close enough for her knee to brush Adrian's. My mother watched them like a director pleased with her final scene. Adrian looked confused, vulnerable, already half-shaped by their influence. And then my mother said the words that burned themselves into my memory. She's stronger and better for you. Mira is distracted. She chose her work over you. But Luna understands connection. Luna lowered her lashes like she was embarrassed by the praise. Adrian didn't argue. He didn't defend me. He didn't even realize I was standing there, watching my life being rewritten without my permission. My heart didn't shatter. It fractured in perfect silence. Because the truth was right there in that room. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a plan. And I was the only one who hadn't been told the script. But what I did next, how I walked away from everything I had ever known, became the first step toward a life none of them ever predicted. I don't remember leaving the house. One moment, I stood in the hallway listening to the three people who had shaped my life rewrite my future without me. The next, I was gripping my steering wheel so tightly that my fingers had gone numb. The cold night outside felt distant compared to the burn spreading through my chest. I should have gone back to campus. I should have confronted Adrian. I should have screamed, demanded explanations, forced the truth into the open. But I didn't. Instead, I drove. Past neighborhoods I knew, past the glowing city skyline, past the places that used to feel familiar. The farther I went, the more I felt the version of myself from Boston slipping away, quiet, obedient, hopeful in all the wrong places. By the time I stopped at a rest area off the highway, the adrenaline drained out of me. What settled in its place was a grief so sharp it felt surgical. My mother hadn't merely interfered, she had replaced me. And Adrian, he hadn't protected anything we'd built. He had simply let himself be guided, reshaped, and steered. Just like Luna always had. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel and sobbed until my ribs ached. Then I did the only thing my heart could trust. I called Riley. When she answered, she didn't ask questions. I'm coming, she said. 3 hours later, she opened the passenger door of my car and slid inside. Her presence alone made the world steadier. Back at my dorm, Riley watched silently as I shoved clothes into a duffel. She didn't offer clichés or empty comfort. She just stood with me, a quiet anchor while everything else felt unmoored. You don't have to stay here, she finally said. Not in this city, not in this story. She was right. 2 days later, I withdrew from my last semester. My professors were stunned, my advisor practically begged me to reconsider, but I couldn't breathe in Boston anymore. Everything there was a reminder of how naive I'd been, how easily the people closest to me could twist the truth and leave me alone to choke on the fallout. I sold what I could, packed what mattered, and boarded a one-way flight across the country. I didn't have a plan, just a suitcase, a handful of savings, and a desperation to outrun the life that had suffocated me. Seattle was nothing like Boston. It smelled like rain and pine. People didn't look at me with history in their eyes. No one saw me as the other daughter. Riley's cousin offered me her fold-out couch. Nights were long and quiet. Sometimes I woke up with tears dried on my cheeks. Other times, I felt nothing at all. But on a morning when the sunlight touched the lake outside the apartment window, something inside me whispered, "Get up." So I did. And that choice changed everything. Because Seattle didn't just give me distance, it gave me the chance to rebuild myself from the shards they left behind. And what I rebuilt wasn't someone they ever expected to meet again. Healing didn't feel like a sunrise. It felt like a slow, hesitant flicker in a dim room. For the first few weeks in Seattle, my life operated in fragments, tiny tasks meant to distract me from the cavern of betrayal still echoing inside my chest. I woke up early because sleeping hurt. I walked by the lake because staying still hurt more. I breathed deeply, not because I was calm, but because I needed proof that air still existed around me. Eventually, I found a therapist, Dr. Rowan, who saw through the carefully controlled version of myself I tried to present. I told her I was fine. She didn't accept it. Instead, she waited, calm, patient, until the truth spilled out like a dam cracking open. You weren't unworthy, she told me once. You were unseen by people who benefited from keeping you small. Her words cut deeper than anything my family ever said because they were true. I applied to complete my degree in Seattle. It wasn't easy, I'd left in chaos, but I pushed through the paperwork, the interviews, the explanations. And slowly, I pieced together a new routine. New classes. New part-time job. New friends who didn't know the old story. For the first time in my life, I wasn't compared to Luna. I wasn't judged by my mother's silent scale of perfection. I existed for myself. Months passed. My grief hardened into clarity. My clarity grew into strength. I learned how to laugh again, not politely, not quietly, but fully. I learned how to take up space without apologizing. I chose my clothes, my hobbies, my direction, my voice. Seattle became my clean slate, my rewrite. And then, I met him. Michael walked into my life like a steady exhale I didn't know I'd been holding. He wasn't dramatic or overwhelming, he was grounding. Kind without performing it. Assertive without domination. He asked questions because he wanted my answers, not to use them against me. He admired that I was rebuilding. He admired the fire I didn't realize I had. He didn't see me as a shadow. He didn't compare me to anyone. He saw me. By the time we built a life together, a home overlooking the lake, routines that felt soft and safe, laughter echoing through rooms I chose, I thought the past had finally quieted. It didn't disappear. But it stayed in its place. Until one gray afternoon, when my phone buzzed with a name I hadn't seen in years. My father. We'd like to visit, the message read. Your mother, Luna, Anne. Adrian. My heart thudded. Michael glanced at me, concerned. What's wrong? I showed him the message. He didn't react with judgment or panic. Instead, he simply said, I'll be here when they come. Those words, the promise in them, made something inside me settle. Whatever storm was heading my way, I wasn't facing it alone. And days later, when their car pulled into my driveway, every fracture from the past threatened to resurface. But nothing could have prepared them for who answered the door, or the life I'd built without their permission. The day they arrived, Seattle was wrapped in a soft gray drizzle, the kind that makes the whole world feel quiet and alert at the same time. I stood beside Michael at the doorway as a familiar car pulled into the driveway. My stomach tightened, but my shoulders stayed square. I wasn't the same girl who had fled Boston in pieces. My mother stepped out first, wearing that signature expression of polite superiority, chin slightly raised, eyes sweeping the property as if evaluating its worth. Luna followed, looking smaller than I remembered, her sunglasses too large for her face. Adrian exited last, hesitant, hands shoved into his pockets like he wished he could be anywhere else. My father climbed out last. He looked older, thinner, his once steady posture now weighed down by something I couldn't quite name. They walked toward the door together. But the moment they saw Michael standing next to me, solid, calm, confident, the color drained from their faces. My mother's smile tightened. Oh, she said, as though she'd discovered an unexpected flaw in a painting. You didn't mention you had company. I didn't, I replied. Come in. Inside, my home felt like armor. Everything was intentional: warm wood, soft lighting, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. This space wasn't curated for appearances. It was built for peace, something my mother could never manufacture. My mother's gaze swept through the rooms, subtly calculating. "It's impressive, Mira," she said, the compliment brittle. We sat for dinner at the long wooden table Michael and I had picked out together. My father remained quiet, avoiding my eyes. Luna glanced around like she was comparing my life to the one she'd been handed. Adrian looked like he wished he were invisible. My mother, of course, began narrating the room as though she were hosting a tour. "You've made quite a life for yourself," she said. "Of course, success isn't everything. Family is important too." Michael didn't respond with the polite silence most people used around her. Instead, he looked directly at her and asked, "When was the last time all of you were together before this?" My mother straightened, ready with a rehearsed answer. "The engagement party," she replied smoothly. Adrian coughed. Luna stiffened. I kept my expression neutral. "That must have been," Michael continued, "a difficult time for Mira." The room froze. My mother's smile faltered. "Well," she said sharply, "Mira wasn't emotionally prepared for that season of her life." Season. As though betrayal were weather. I swallowed hard, ready to speak, but Luna surprised me. "Mom," she said quietly, "stop." The shock in my mother's eyes was immediate. "Excuse me," she snapped. But Luna didn't back down this time. Her hands trembled, but her voice didn't. "We're not pretending anymore. Not in her home." The air shifted. The storm I'd been bracing for had finally cracked open. What Luna revealed next shattered years of silence, and exposed truths my mother never expected to face. Luna's voice wavered, but she didn't look away from our mother. "I'm done lying," she said. "I'm done protecting a version of this family that never actually existed." My mother's jaw tightened. "Luna, that's enough." But Luna shook her head, and for the first time in my life, she wasn't the polished golden child. She looked human, tired, weighed down, cracked open. "No," she whispered. "She deserves the truth." My pulse hammered in my ears. Michael reached for my hand under the table, steady, grounding. Adrian swallowed, suddenly pale. My father's eyes widened as though he'd been waiting years for someone else to speak the words he never had the courage to. Luna turned to me. "Mira, it wasn't an accident." "None of it." The room felt impossibly still. "Mom didn't just talk to Adrian," she continued. "She called him constantly. She told him you were losing interest in the relationship, that you didn't see a future with him." My stomach twisted. "I never." "I know," Luna said quickly. "And that's not all." My mother slammed her fork onto her plate. "Luna." Not another word. But Luna didn't stop. "She told Adrian you were seeing someone else at school. That you were planning to break things off. That you only cared about your career." Each sentence landed like a blade. Adrian was trembling now, eyes glassy with regret. "She also," Luna whispered, "used your old laptop. She drafted messages. And she had me send them so they'd look like they came from you." My breath caught. "You sent them?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. I was stupid. I believed her when she said you'd be fine. That you didn't need him. That I did. She looked at Adrian then, softly, painfully. "And I wanted him to choose me." Adrian covered his face with his hands. "I trusted the wrong people," he said quietly. "I should have gone to you. I should have asked. I should have fought for the truth instead of letting your mother dictate it." My father looked like someone had pulled the ground out from under him. "Linda," he whispered, voice shaking, "tell me none of this is true." My mother straightened her shoulders, her voice icy. "I protected my daughters. I did what was necessary." "No," I said, my voice breaking but steady. You did what made your image look cleaner. You broke me because I didn't fit the life you wanted to display. Her silence wasn't guilt, it was irritation. Like being confronted was an inconvenience. Michael leaned forward, calm but sharp. You didn't protect anyone. You manipulated them. You controlled the narrative so you could choose who succeeded and who didn't. That isn't parenting. It's abuse. My mother stood abruptly. I won't be lectured in my own daughter's house. I looked at her, meeting her eyes for the first time without fear. This isn't your house, I said softly. And it's not your story anymore. That was the moment my father broke. He placed his hand on the table, knuckles trembling. Mira, he whispered, I'm so sorry. I knew things were wrong. I didn't stop it. That's on me. My mother's eyes widened in disbelief, he had never chosen anyone over her. Luna, my father said gently, keep going. And what she said next changed everything. Because the final secret Luna revealed wasn't just about Adrian, it was about the future my mother tried to erase before it ever began. Luna wiped her cheeks, inhaling shakily as though gathering the last pieces of courage she'd been denied all her life. There's something else you need to know, she whispered. Something Mom never wanted you to find out. My mother's expression snapped tight, panic flashing like lightning. Luna. Stop. But Luna didn't. She didn't just push Adrian toward me, she said. She pushed him away from you because she was terrified of what your future would look like if you stayed together. I frowned, confused. What future? Luna clasped her hands together. She told Adrian that your career wasn't stable enough. That you would hold him back. That choosing you meant choosing a harder life. She swallowed hard. She decided you weren't the right match for the family image she wanted. My chest tightened. Not because of Adrian, but because of the truth I'd always felt but never heard aloud. My mother saw me as a flaw. A risk. Something to manage, not love. Michael's hand brushed against my back, steadying me. Luna's voice softened. It wasn't about him. It wasn't even about me. It was about control. My father looked at my mother with devastation. You engineered this? You took their choices away? My mother's lips pressed into a thin, sharp line. They're my daughters. I know what's best for them. Mira was always fragile. Fragile. The word sliced deeper than any betrayal. No, I said quietly. I wasn't fragile. I was unsupported. There's a difference. My father looked at me with watery eyes. I'm sorry, he whispered. For every time I stayed silent. My mother scoffed. Oh please. She left us. She abandoned the family. No, I said, meeting her gaze. You pushed me out. You made a life that had no room for me unless I stayed in the shadows. Silence. Real, heavy silence. And then Adrian stood. He looked at me with regret that came far too late. I am sorry, he said. I was weak. I let myself be influenced. I let myself be swayed. And you deserved someone who would have fought for the truth. Not someone who let it be rewritten. I didn't forgive him. But for the first time I didn't need an apology to move on. Luna wiped her face again. I left his apartment months after you did, she whispered. Nothing Mom tried to build stayed standing. I realized I didn't even love him, I loved the approval she dangled in front of me. My mother's eyes narrowed, but Luna continued. I'm done letting her script my life. And I want to make things right, if you'll let me. Before I could respond, my mother grabbed her purse. We're leaving. But my father didn't move. You can go, he told her softly. I'm staying. I have years to make up for with my daughter. Shock rippled across my mother's face, someone finally said no to her. She stormed out. Adrian followed quietly. Luna lingered, eyes hopeful and broken at once. Mira, she whispered, please give me a chance. I didn't answer then. But I didn't shut the door on her either. When the house finally went still, Michael slid his arm around me. You okay? He asked gently. For the first time in years. I almost was. But the days that followed, the healing, the rebuilding, the final closure, would reveal just how completely I had rewritten the life they once tried to control. The days after their visit felt strangely quiet, as if years